Well, hello there, people. I hope you're keeping very well indeed, and welcome to my Master Duel solo mode guide focusing on using only the loner decks. This video is specifically for the Decisive Strike Cyber Dragon duel within the Tactical Try deck gate. First off, we'll discuss the loner deck we're given, then check out the opponent's deck, and finish off with duels going first and second. So, let's get straight into it. Good news, everybody. You've actually got yourselves a semi-decent deck here. Not very common when going through the solo gates, so we'll take what we can get, and you should be able to finish this duel pretty quickly. The only thing really stopping you would be the general Cyber Dragon knowledge and the best line to take with this deck. So on that note, what you want to be doing is going second. Cyber Dragons are all about making a really big monster, and for attacking as much as possible, trying to finish the opponent in one turn. You can't really do that going first, and on top of that, there isn't many defensive cards to be able to go turn one properly, and on top of that, your opponent has some nasty stuff they can do to your special summoned monsters if they are going second instead. So I'll go through that stuff of the opponent's deck shortly, but for now, let's concentrate on this main deck here. So, the other thing to note as well is don't be afraid to restart, because although this deck does have a semi-decent engine, if you don't draw any of the starters, you're actually stuck. It can get to a point where you can't play anything. Say you've got Sales Band, Triple Tactics Thrust, Triple Tactics Talent, and then Called by the Graves. That's not really going to help you. And although that might seem like a specific example, there's actually quite a few cards which don't give you any sort of board. So do be aware of that, don't be afraid to restart. As long as you draw some of your starters or even a starter, you're usually good to go. So what are we looking for? The big thing is Cyber Dragon Core. And if you don't have Cyber Dragon Core, you really want to see a Cyber Emergency so you can search a Cyber Dragon Core instead. And what you want to do is, although it might seem crazy, summoning a 400 attack monster, is to normal summon Cyber Dragon Core and use its effect to add a cyber spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Now, the first priority is Cyber Dark Realm. If you've already got Cyber Dark Realm, you want to look at Cyber Emergency, and if you've already got that, then Cyber Repair Plant you can go for instead. However, usually be finishing off the opponent before really using this. So, we've then got our Cyber Dark Realm. We instantly play that to search out Cyber Dark Chimera. If you've already got it in your hand, then it is what it is, unfortunately. But the big thing is the second effect of Cyber Dark Realm is you can normal summon an additional Cyber Dark monster. So with that, do the summon of Cyber Dark Chimera, and then if you don't have a Power Bond in your hand, you want to use Cyber Dark Chimera's effect to discard a card and search for one of the Power Bonds. With Power Bond, you then want to be able to go into a fusion monster, either Cyber Twin Dragon or Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon. Ideally, Cyber Twin Dragon, because it's got chunkier attack, and Power Bond doubles the attack of any fusion monster made with it. And on top of that, Cyber Twin Dragon can attack twice in one go. So with just Power Bond's effect, you can attack for 5,600 points of damage twice. And that can usually finish the opponent off. You can have a similar way with Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon, although the attack is less, and depending, you might not have quite enough to finish, but it's still another option. It is still another option indeed. And that is that, essentially. That is the main line. Bring out big chunky monster, attack twice, game. Done, dusted. However, what else can you have in your hand? Because, as you probably spotted, the materials you need for these two cards are Cyber Dragon monsters, and you've only got 3 Cyber Dragons within the deck. Well, the good news is the support cards, or rather the other Cyber Dragon monsters, are Hertz, Nachster, and Core. They become Cyber Dragon once they're on the field. Also the graveyard, but on the field is where you need them to be able to use Power Bond. The other cards you've got here then are Cyber Dragon Nachster, its effect, which is quite decent in hand, is you can discard one other monster, special summon this card from your hand. What you'd really want to do is discard Cyber Dragon Hurts, because when that's discarded and sent to the graveyard, you can add one other Cyber Dragon from your deck or graveyard to your hand, which is amazing. On top of that, once Cyber Dragon Nachster is normal or special summoned, you can target a machine monster with 2100 attack or defense in your graveyard and special summon it. Now, with that in mind, you don't have to discard Cyber Dragon Hurts. You could discard a Cyber Dragon that might be in your hand already. And with that, you're basically not using your resource at all. You're just bringing it back onto the field again as part of your material for Cyber Twin Dragon. Bear in mind you only need 2 Cyber Dragons, which is amazing. So that's the general Cyber Dragon core. There are things such as Galaxy, or rather there are monsters, not things, such as Galaxy Soldier, which is an easy level 5 monster to bring onto the field. You can only use its effect once per turn though, so you can't use 2 Galaxy Soldiers to then exceed summon. And the other thing to bear in mind is it summons in defense. So unless you're going to exceed summon or link summon with it, there's no point in really using its effect. But it is a nice addition to be able to go into Cyber Dragon Nova, which in turn, if you're able to go into Cyber Dragon Nova, you can then exceed summon into Cyber Dragon Infinity to give you a negating monster on the field. But again, I wouldn't worry too much about this unless you're going first or unless you're worried about the opponent's back row, because you're going to finish them Unga Bunga style by attacking them with big, beefy monsters. Another monster to keep an eye out for though is Therion King Regulus. The thing with that is all it requires is a machine monster in the graveyard, and you can then special summon this out from your hand to the field and equip it with one of those machine monsters in your graveyard. And that also then becomes a negation monster. Good times indeed. And also you've got one kaiju monster, which is machine type. And the big thing there is to be able to then go into Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. So with Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, that can use any monster on the field that is a machine, which your kaiju is. So, and again, all it requires is one Cyber Dragon plus the other machine monsters. So making a chunky monster is quite nice there. It's more for removal on their side of the field as opposed to attacking with, because you can't power bond into this, unfortunately, as it must be first special summoned from your extra deck by sending the cards from either field to the graveyard. So keep that in mind. Yeah, you can't power bond into it. And besides, why would you want to power bond into this when you could power bond into even chunkier monsters? So, other than that, again, you've got your generic things like Lightning Storm to be aware of, Raigeki and Harpy's Feather Duster, which is always nice to clear the opponent's board, and also Clockwork Knight, which makes every face-up monster machine monsters, which, going back to Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, means you can actually get a beefier Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon if you wanted to, depending on how many monsters the opponent has summoned. So be aware of those. The rest are generic things like Call by the Grave, which your opponent doesn't really have much in the graveyard for you to be targeting with, so I wouldn't worry too much about these. Same with the Sales ban, although I will show you a few cards you can declare if you're worried about the opponent's back row. In fact, I might as well say them now, which is Bottomless Trap Hole and the Drowning Mirror Force. There are a couple of others. We'll go through the deck, what else you can call there, but otherwise you won't really be using Sales ban. And also the opponent doesn't have much that activates in your main phase for you to be able to use Triple Tactics Thrust and Triple Tactics Talent. So these are mostly dead cards to be aware of. Don't hold on to them like the main meta game because you're not going up against a meta deck, unfortunately. Well, I say unfortunately, you'd have a harder time if it was a meta deck. So we'll go from there. Red Reboot can also be quite nice if you're unsure what the opponent has in the back row. So, other than that, the only other thing to note is if you've got spare materials, then you can go into Cyber Dragon Seeger. All it requires is 2 machine monsters, including a Cyber Dragon. And with that, it's a 2100 beat stick, which if it hasn't attacked, and bearing in mind it's in any battle phase, you can just target a machine monster you control with 2100 or more attack, and for the rest of the turn, the monster gains 2100 attack and defense, which is great. So with that, let's go in to the opponent's deck. So the opponent's deck, not exactly amazing. It's just Exceed / Synchro spam to a degree. They can use Summon a Monk to discard a spell and bring out another monster onto the field. If it's a tuner, they can then Synchro Summon. If it's just a standard level 4 monster, they can Exceed. There's also Rescue Rabbit, which can flip into 2 normal monsters here, being the Angel Trumpeter and the Megalo Smasher X. The tuner monsters, basically everything else doesn't really have effects to be concerned about because they don't have effects which concern you as a player and your monsters. At least in their main deck. In the extra deck it changes, which we'll go through shortly. But the rest of it, you've got Photon Thrasher, which is just a special summon from the hand. They do have Skullmeister, but it's not often they would be using that, if at all anyway. And you can still usually extend even after they've used the Skullmeister, which is great. And then Goblinderberg, so that's summoned to the field. They can special summon another level 4 or lower monster from the hand. And that would then be either, again, a Synchro Summon or an Exceed they would be going into. In terms of their support cards, the rest of this isn't too much of an issue. Exceed Reception, target a face-up monster you control that has a level, special summon a monster with the same level as that monster from your hand. Very, very minor. Living Fossil, again, that special summons another monster from the graveyard onto the field. And it's just to make more synchro plays and Exceed. Basically, I've just repeated that constantly, but that's what 75% of this deck does. The main annoying cards are actually Bottomless Trap Hole and the Drowning Mirror Force. They, funnily enough, come up quite often in this game. So if you've got Salesman, you'd usually want to aim for these cards because they are the only responsive cards the opponent has. But otherwise, the rest of it is just more affecting the opponent rather than yourself. It doesn't affect your monsters whatsoever. However, once they go into the extra deck, that's where things can change. So they've got Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. So if they special summon that and you've got a special summoned monster on the field, or well, at least one, then Scarlight can just destroy as many other special summoned effect monsters on the field as possible with attack less than or equal to this card, which is quite a lot, unless you've used Power Bond to save your fusion monster. Again, you'd be wanting to wipe out your opponent before it gets to your opponent's turn. You really see these Synchro and Exceed plays if you go first and then the opponent is able to start playing. Other things to watch out for if the opponent is playing is Scrap Dragon. This can destroy another card they control and as well as one of yours. There's then like a slight beat stick here. And again, Colossal Fighter, another beat stick. The computer play doesn't often go for Stardust Dragon. Not that that's an issue for you because you're not all about destroying cards really, more about just beating over them. And then Exceed wise, they can go into Utopia. They can go into Heroic Champion Excalibur, which if they are going second can actually be quite frustrating for you because it can be a chunky monster anyway and drain your life points. And you've got Volzar Lagia and Tornado Dragon. Again, not huge. The big things really are watch out for the beat sticks and watch out for the opponent's trap cards. That's all there is. You really don't have to worry about anything else, honestly. So, let's get into some matches, shall we? Okay, people, let's see what we can do going first with this deck. Now, as already mentioned, you don't really want to be going first with Cyber Dragons, or at least with this deck anyway, as there isn't much in terms of responsiveness, yet there is for going turn 2, like Lightning Storm and Triple Tactics Thrust. Although, saying that, I'm not sure what Triple Tactics Thrust can be used for. So, anyway, let's use Cyber Dragon Core's effect to bring out Cyber Dark Realm. Because we haven't drawn into our Cyber Dark Chimera, this is almost a no-brainer to go into. We will then use Cyber Dark Realm's effect to do a normal summon of Cyber Dark Chimera. And we will actually get rid of the triple Tactics Thrust that we talked about. Let's bring out the Power Bond. Okay, And from there, we shall link summon into Cyber Dragon Seeger. Good times, have a chunky body on board. And what we're going to do is actually change our reaction to on here. Because we want to use the Maxi in the opponent's draw phase, because they do have inherent special summoning cards. Like the Photon Thrasher we just saw there. So we got an extra draw, that's why it's important. I changed this back to auto now because, well, we don't need it on anymore. Okay, Scrap Dragon, are we going to get blown up? Ooh, the Living Fossil. The opponent going ham on the special summoning. And we're drawing a lot of doubles. Double Galaxy Soldier, double Lightning Storm, and even before that, double Max C. Now, are we dead? Probably not. Interesting play from the opponent there, blowing up their own monster. But at the same time, they wouldn't have been able to beat over our Cyber Dragon Seeger either, because we would have been able to beef up its attack points. Okay, this should be a slam dunk now. Let's use... Actually, hold on. Want to use Cyber Dragon Core's effect. If only your opponent controls a monster. We got to remember that, so let's not go ham with the Galaxy Soldier just yet. We will special summon the Cyber Dragon Nachster. And we will bring back out the Cyber Dragon Seeger. Good times. Let's use Galaxy Soldier's effect, why not? Getting rid of the other Galaxy Soldier. Put it in defense mode. We use... oh, we can't use Cyber Dragon Core's effect because we can only use actually one at a time here. Got to be very, very wary of that. I think... You know what? We could just go into power bonding. We really can just go into power bonding. So, let's do it. Power bond. And I think we could go into a very chunky Cyber Twin Dragon. So, Cyber Dragon Core, Cyber Dragon Nachster. Put it face up there. So, I think from there as well, it was pretty useless to special summon the Galaxy Soldier, but you know what, it's fine. It really is fine. Let's get rid of said Galaxy Soldier. But we've got game here. We've got game. We'll just reduce the attack of the Scarlight, and then let's go for the attack. So, Cyber Twin Dragon. You know what? We will use Cyber Dragon Seeger's effect to bump up Cyber Twin Dragon even more. And that is going to be a double attack for game. Beautiful stuff. Nice and simple. So, although it was looking a bit funny at first, we were able to OTK on turn 3. So, very, very happy with that indeed. Now, let's see what happens when we go second. Right, let's see what we can do going second. Again, this is more ideal for the Cyber Dragons due to the OTK potential. However, that does depend on our hand, and it's not a bad hand. Got the Lightning Storm to get rid of a lot of the opponent's setup. We've got a Cyber Dragon Core for a search. We've got the Power Bomb, Cyber Emergency. Overall, this is pretty funky. So, Call by the Grave not really helping us here, but that's fine. I think we need to Lightning Storm the back row. So, was that a bottomless trap hole? Mystical Space Typhoon. Whatever, it's fine. Let us use the Cyber Emergency to search for... Usually you would search for Cyber Dragon Core, but because we've already got one, I think what we're going to do is go into Cyber Dragon Nachster, especially as we have a Cyber Dragon to discard in our hand. So, let's do a normal summon of Cyber Dragon Core first. We will go into... Yeah, we haven't drawn that. So, Cyber Dark Realm. Just had to make sure I didn't draw into the one-off. I'm pretty sure I didn't, and luckily we hadn't. So, use Cyber Dark Realm's effect to bring our Cyber Dark Chimera out. Then use its effect to normal summon it out. we've already got a power bond in our hand, so there's no point doing a discard here. I mean, technically, if we wasn't going to finish, then we can get rid of the Call by the Grave, because it's unlikely the opponent has graveyard effects. So, on that note, let's use Nachster's effect. Bomp. And, of course, trigger its ability to bring out what we've just discarded. Good times indeed. Good times. And then from here, let's do the power bond. Go into, I suppose, yeah, either of these are fine. Cyber Twin Dragon is the double attack. So let's use these two. Bring the Cyber Twin Dragon out. The opponent doesn't have anything to stop us from the hand. This is kind of unnecessary, but just to do beefy Cyber Twin Dragon goodness, we will special summon out Cyber Dragon Seeger. Obviously depends on the opponent's end board here. You might want the extra attack. Let's go for it. So Cyber Dragon Seeger, activate effect, onto Cyber Twin Dragon. Got to make sure you use the effects before doing the attack or with anything else first. Bop, chunky damage. Bop, chunky damage again. And that is why Cyber Dragons love going second. So, on that note, I hope this has helped you out. This is a pretty easy solo mission anyway, because the tri-solo missions do give you pretty decent starting decks. But in case you needed that extra little push, here you are. This should give you a general rundown of how to use the Cyber Dragon deck. So on that note, if you had any further questions, please do pop your comments in the section below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, everyone, you all take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye for now.